The Greek vase of Eos is a woman who seems to be desperately chasing a man named Chthonus. The vase is a black figure vase with the figures painted red with black outlining. Eos is the taller figure who is putting her hands out towards Chthonus. From the form of the figure, it seems like she is running. Looking at her feet, one firmly on the ground and the other higher up. Then there is Chthonus, who is smaller in height. Chthonus' body is turned slightly as his head is looking back at Eos. Seems like he is also running, but his strides are longer than Eos.
Looking at the vase is scratching the surface of the story of the relentless Eos, who was also known as Dawn. Eos would relentlessly chase immortal men and make them her lover. The most famous lover of Eos was Tithonus, a Trojan prince and the son of King Laomedon. Eos and Tithonus were said to be happy together, but after much time Eos started to realize that one day her mortal lover would die from aging and she would remain the same since she is immortal. Not liking the thought of her lover dying, Eos asked Zeus to make Tithonus immortal, so that they could be together for eternity. Zeus's request was specific enough for Zeus to grant. However, Eos forgot to ask for eternal youth instead of immortality. Tithonus would not die, but he did continue to age. As time passed, Tithonus started to become more weak. It started to become more painful as his body grew old. Eos saw that Tithonus was in pain and ended up going back to Zeus to ask for help again. Zeus decided that he could not take away the immortality that had been freely given, nor could he make Tithonus young again. Instead, Zeus decided to transform Tithonus into a cicada. Today, they say that it is in certain parts of the world the cicada can be heard with the arrival of dawn each day.
Next up, we have the story of the Greek hero Odysseus and the three sirens. Looking at the Greek vase, it depicts Odysseus' ship passing the sirens. The sea has a wavy outline of the red and black blended together. The ship has about 5 men on the lower part of the ship rowing with oars. Then there's a man on the right who is a steersman that has a red rope that is attached to the sail and the oar. The steersman has his mouth open, seeming like he's giving out words of encouragement to the rowers. On the side of the boat there is a large eye of arcade paint in black. On the metal pole, Odysseus is tied up, with his head looking up at the sirens. The sirens are above that, have a head of a woman and a body of a bird. The difference in the three is that the headbands around their head are different designs. There are 2 sirens who are on top of the clouds looking at the ship, and then there is one who has fallen towards the ship.
The story goes that Odysseus made up his mind to leave Phthia and head back to Ithaca. The love-stricken Circe had no choice but to let him go. Before Odysseus left, Circe warned him of the dangers that awaited him on his journey. First, you will come to the sirens, she told him, who enchant all who come near them. If anyone unaware draws in too close and hears the singing of the sirens, you'll never see your wife and children, for you will be sucked into their sweetness of the siren voice to your death. There is only one way for a sailor to pass the sirens unharmed, and that was by not hearing them sing. Odysseus took the advice of Circe and ordered each member of his crew to stuff his own ears with beeswax. However, Odysseus has other plans when sailing around towards the sirens. Odysseus bound himself to the mast, instructing his sailors to tie him even tighter if he starts begging them to be unfastened or tries to break loose by himself. Odysseus didn't want to miss the opportunity to experience the luring songs of the sirens and hear what all the fuss is about. As Odysseus passed the island of Scylla and Charybdis, he suddenly wanted to get free from the mast and swim towards the sirens, for their song was beautiful and captivating to him. But the ropes were so tight around him that he could not escape. His crew could not hear the siren song nor the screams of their leader. He started to beg and cry to be untied to go see the sirens. As the ship was sailing away from the island, the song of the sirens was fading out, and Odysseus made it. Since Odysseus made it out alive, the sirens decided to hurl themselves deep into the ocean to never be seen again.
The last and final story is about Perseus and how he cut off Medusa's head. In the vase is a scene of Perseus with the head of Medusa. In the center, Medusa is the one with the chiton with the sleeves, and she seems to have fallen down, but she's holding herself with her hands. Then there's blood dripping down from her neck, where her head used to be. On her left is Perseus, who's escaping from the scene. His arms are extended trying to leave, but his head is still looking at Medusa's body. He wears a chiton similar to Medusa, with a winged hat and a bag at his side. In Perseus' hand, he's holding a sickle. Then on the left of Medusa is Athena carrying a long spear over her right shoulder, and in her right hand she holds the edge of her skirt. She wears a long chiton which shows no folds, but it has a pattern on it. She's also wearing a helmet on her head.
Perseus grew up to be a handsome and strong young man who found it himself in a way of a king named Polydectes. Both Perseus and Polydectes wanted Danae to become their wife. King Polydectes knew he could not have Danae for himself as long as Perseus was there. To get Perseus away from Danae, he decided to tell Perseus that if he brought the head of Medusa, he could have Danae. Medusa was one of the 3 sisters of the Gorgons, but she was the only mortal one. However, if you look at her, then that person would be turned into stone. Perseus took the mission and set off in his adventure trying to find Medusa's lair. He searched aimlessly but could not find it, until the gods Athena and Hermes felt bad for Perseus and decided to take pity on him. They decided to offer him advice to get his journey started. They told him the sisters of Grae can give him help on his journey to find Medusa. The Grae are 3 old women who live in a cave and share one single eye. When they were going to switch eyes to the next woman, Perseus grabbed it and blackmailed them to help him on the journey to Medusa. The Grae ended up telling Perseus that if he visit a nymph in the north, they would not only give him the location of Medusa, but also owned winged sandals and a magical bag. When he headed off to the north of Nymph, he was able to acquire the winged sandals and magical bag. He also found out that he had Hades' cap of invisibility. He ended up taking the hat with him on his journey. He finally got his items. He slung the bag on his shoulder, strapped on the sandals to his ankles, and put the cap on his head. Wearing a cap made him invisible to everyone around, but he could see everyone. He also received adamantine sickle from Hermes. Once he was ready, he flew across the ocean to the cave Medusa lives in. Perseus turned his back and started to approach Medusa's sleeping figure. By looking at the reflection of her from the shield, he tiptoed towards her, and when he finally reached Medusa, he raised the sickle and violently struck off her head. When he cut off her head, 2 unborn children that were conceived from Poseidon at the time when she was immortal popped out of her body, and it was a Pegasus and a Chrysaor. When he had her head, he quickly put it in the magical bag. Then he quickly ran away. By using the power of the winged sandals, he managed to escape from the cave before the Gorgon sisters could kill him.